In this video, I'm going to finish the only objective in topic 2, which is simplifying and converting radical expressions and rational exponents. Alright, so there's 2 more pieces of learning that I need to walk you through before you can practice this on your own. And the first piece just builds on what we just talked about, which was breaking down square roots, alright? These 4 down here. So we broke down square roots looking for buddies, or pairs of 2. Here, it's going to be a little different because we're going to start breaking down cube roots and 4th roots and 5th roots and higher roots in general, alright? So the only rule you have to consider when doing this, and so again, to simplify a cube root, use the same process as the square root, prime factorization, except 3 of the same numbers are needed to come out. And I know that it's 3 because we're taking the 3rd root. So I'm looking for triplets or pairs of 3s, or 3 of a kind. Sorry, 3 of a kind, all right? So I'm going to do the middle one and model exactly how I'd want to do it because there's variables in there and we haven't worked with variables much. And then I'm going to ask you to do the other 2, all right? So I know first thing that I would look at is what kind of radical is it? And this is the cubed root, or the 3rd root. So that tells me that I need 3 of a kind to come out. I'm going to break down the number first. 32 divided by 4 is 8. All right? So 4 times 8 is 32. Break down 4 into 2 and 2. 8 into 2 and 4. And finally this 4 into 2 and 2. So at this point, it is prime factorization of the number, same process as the square root. But again, I'm going to look for 3 of a kind. All right? Let me count my 2's. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Now, I have 3 of a kind right here. So that 3 of a kind comes out as 1, 2. It is the same process, but because I'm taking the cube root of that number, I would need 3 to escape as that one number. So I'm going to drop that down and write it here. It comes out as 1, 2. All right? I'm going to leave space between my free number and the cube root sign because I'm still going to deal with my variables in just a little second. So please write it just like that. Now, what's left inside is 2 times 2, and they're both left in the radical because there was only 2 of them. It would have needed a 3rd 2 in order to be freed from the radical, but it didn't have that, so it has to stay inside as 2 times 2. Now, to finish off the numbers, I'm going to write my freed 2, then the cube root with some space in there, and again, 2 times 2 is 4. So I am done now with my numbers. 2 cube root of 4 is how I would do the cube root of 32 to simplify that. And again, I have 4 down here because I had to multiply those 2 because they were remaining here. Now let's talk about the variables. The variables are the same process, all right? I'm going to list out, here is x to the 4th. So I'm going to list out x to the 4th means it's multiplied by itself 4 times, so that means I have 4 x's. 1, 2, 3, 4. And for y's, y to the 5th means I have 5 y's. 3, 4, 5. And I'm looking for groups of 3, or 3 of a kind, to come out of the radical. So I'm going to circle 3 x's. Those 3 x's come out as 1x. And they go, and I'll do that a little bit differently just to show a different color. They come out as 1x, and it goes right here next to my freed 2. Now I have a free x as well. And here, I have 3 y's. That also comes out as 1y, and it goes next to the x. So my freed pieces are now 2xy. Let's talk about what's still left inside for the x's. There is 1x still left inside, and that just goes in next to the 4 as x. And there are 2 y's left inside, but again, I have to multiply them. Y times y is y squared. All right? So my final answer is 2xy times the cube root of 4xy squared. And I can square my answer to be done with it. If you notice a relationship, it was x to the 4th. 4 minus 3 is x to the 1. And an x came out. It was y to the 5th. 5 minus 3 is y squared. And a y came out here. Just another way to check your work. So please, go ahead and try this process with the other 2. Again, they're just numbers, so all you're going to do is break down the number, and if you remember, looking for 3 of a kind of a number. So please pause the video and try those two on your own. At this point you should have tried both of those that I asked you to, and if you notice, the cube root of 125 breaks down to an even 5. I did my factor tree here of 5 and 25, and then 25 breaks down to 5 and 5. So I had a triplet, or a 3 of a kind of 5. And so I circled that, and it came out as just the number 5. And there's nothing left inside the radical because there's no numbers left over here. So I'm just left with a free number 5. And again, I didn't mention this, but a way to check that, and this is always the process I would take when simplifying any type of radical, is to see if it is a perfect cube in this case. So to check that on your calculator, there is a specific button for a perfect cube. I just hit Math and go down to number 4. And I want the cube root of 125. So in this case, it gives me 5. So I could have done that on my calculator and immediately jumped to 5. So I would always start this process when you're taking roots of things and try that on your calculator first to see if it comes out evenly. If not, then that tells you have to do the factor tree. Now over here, the cube root of 54, if you try that on your calculator, it doesn't break down evenly, so that tells me it's a decimal, so that tells me I have to do the factor tree. And when I break it down, I get a triplet of 3's here, so please check your work with mine, and my final answer then comes out as a free 3, and then this 2 over here is left inside. So my final answer is 3 times the cube root of 2. Please signify that you're doing the cube root right here. And so if you didn't get 5 or you didn't get 5 or 3 times the cube root of 2, please raise your hand and I will come check your work. Now let's continue on, and I just want to show you one more example of simplifying radicals, and in this case they're higher powers, or higher roots, higher powers. And in this case I'm going to do this example with the 5th root. Alright? So the first thing I think about when looking at this radical is what kind of root is it? It's the 5th root. So I'm looking for 5 of a kind. In order to be freed of this radical, it needs to have 5 of a kind. And so that's that process. Now again, to do this, I want to check it on the calculator first and always start this. So I'm going to show you how to do this process, so please follow along on your calculator. Bring this up, clear it to the home screen. Now there isn't a specific button for the 5th root like there was for the cube root. So I'm going to hit the number 5 first. So please punch in 5. Then I'm going to go to my math option again, and this time I'm going to go down. If you see this option, the 5th option, it has an X with a radical sign. That's going to tell me that gives me any option of any root that I want. I've already told my calculator that I want the 5th root, and so now I'm going to go down and pick this one. It's going to help to say I want the 5th root of a number. So I picked the option 5 after I punched in 5. And your calculator might look a little bit different. This 5 might be up here where that X is. That's fine. But now I'm telling my calculator that I want the 5th root of something. In this case, I want the 5th root of 64. I hit enter, and I look, and it's not a whole number. So this isn't a perfect 5th root, or perfect power of 5. So this tells me, because of this decimal here, that I have to break this down with the factor tree. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm looking for 5 of a kind. 64 is even, so I know 2 goes in there. 64 divided by 2 is 32. 32 breaks down into 8 and 4. 8 breaks down into 4 and 2. This 4 breaks down into 2 and 2. And this 4 breaks down into 2 and 2. And I am done. Prime factorization. Now I'm going to count my 2's. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I forgot that one. There's 6 2's, but again, I can't circle all of the 2's because I'm looking for 5 of a kind, because it's the 5th root. And so I need to circle only 5 of my 2's right here. So these 5 2's, 5 of a kind of a 2, come out as just 1 2. And then inside the 5th root radical, please signify that you're doing the 5th root, is this lone 2 that's stuck inside because it didn't have any more partners to help it come out. So my final answer is 2 times the 5th root of 2. And I'm done. So please go ahead and try the next 2 on your own. Try the 4th root of 625 with your calculator to see if it comes out perfect. and then try the middle one on your own as well. Remember that this is a variable, so you have to list out all 11 x's and see how many 4 of a kinds come out, and they come out as the single x, and then write what's left inside. At this point, you should have paused the video and tried these two on your own, and hopefully you've already done this. You've checked with your calculator to see what the 4th root of 625 is. But I'm going to punch that into mine. So I'm going to hit 4 first because there's no specific button for the 4th root. So I hit 4 on my home screen, then I go into Math, and then I go down to the 5th option to bring up that radical. So now I have the 4th root of, and I want 625. And the 4th root of 625 is 5. So if you did that on your calculator, you don't even have to show me this work. You can just jump straight down to the answer of 5. I did show you the factor tree, just in case you did it that way as well. And so if you did it that way, hopefully your work looks exactly like mine. And I have a pair of, not a pair, I'm sorry, I have 4 of a kind of 5. And so that 4 of a kind comes out as the 1, 5. And there was nothing left over inside of a radical, so I'm just left with 5. So either way is good, factor tree or calculator, but I would always check first with the calculator because at times it'll give me a whole number and then I'm done. Now, over here to the middle one, I've already listed out the 11 x's, so hopefully you've done this too. Hopefully you've gotten to an answer, but please follow along with me. And I'm going to talk you through my thought process. Hopefully yours was very similar. I need 4 of a kind because of that 4, it's the 4th root. So I need 4 of a kind of anything that exists under the radical. In this case, they were x's. And so I have 4 right there. And then I'm going to do this in a different color. I also have 4 right there. So the first 4 come out as 1x. And the second 4 come out as 1x. So I'm left with, I'll just finish in one color, x times x on the outside of the radical. On the inside of the 4th root of a radical is these 3 x's that remain, all right? Those 3 x's have to be written as just x times x times x still. Now, if you didn't show me this middle step, fine. If you jump straight to your answer, that's great. I have to do some math here, because on the outside I have x times x, which is x squared, and then times the 4th root of x times x, which is x to the 3rd, or x cubed. So my final answer is x squared times x cubed. Now, if you didn't get 5 for this one, or x squared times the 4th root of x cubed, for this one, please raise your hand and I will come check your work. The piece of this objective is to evaluate each exponential, and I've given you examples down here. For this objective, you're going to use your calculator. And so if ever you see a number raised to a rational power, you can just use your calculator to simplify it or to evaluate it. And this is the process I'll ask you to take. So take out your calculator and follow along right here. I'm going to do example A. So for example A, I'm going to enter in on my home screen exactly like I see it. 25 raised to the 3/2. I'm going to use my caret sign here. But anytime you have a rational power, or just a fraction in general, please put that fraction in parentheses. So parentheses 3 divided by 2. So now in my calculator I have 25 raised to the 3 divided by 2 in parentheses. It looks exactly like it does on my paper. I hit enter and I am given the answer of 125. So at this step I'm done. I've evaluated all I need to. So now please pause the video and try the remaining 4 examples on your own and entering it in exactly like you see it into your calculator. So if you see parentheses, put parentheses. Also, you need to put all the rational powers in parentheses as well. Pause the video and try the remaining 4 on your own, and I've written my answers in red. If you didn't get these answers, please raise your hand and I will come check your work. Now, that concludes the notes in the practice of this, and now I'm going to have you try all of this on your own. So if you look through your packet, I've laid out 20 problems for you to practice what I've just taught. And so I've tried to lay out each section as we went over it. So the first is you're going to write each expression in from exponential form, or rational form into radical form, then vice versa. Then you're going to simplify radicals here, and remember, if it's the 5th root or whatever, you need to find 5 of a kind, and then you're finally going to evaluate like I just showed you on your calculator. Your goal is 20 out of 20.